In this video, we show how to solve one-step equations. A one-step equation is an equation that can be solved in a single step taken to isolate the variable on one side of the equal sign. Given an equation to solve, the goal is to get just the variable by itself on one side of the equal sign. To do this, we can add, subtract, multiply, or divide a number to both sides of the equation, except 0. We cannot divide an equation by 0. All right, let's look at some practice problems. Suppose the question is to solve each equation. Here we have x plus 9 equal 11. The question says solve this. So solve means isolate the variable on one side of the equal sign. So in order to solve an equation, think about what you have to get rid of to get the variable by itself. We have to get rid of this 9 here, right? So in order to get rid of 9, we should ask, what is 9 doing to the variable? It's added to the variable, see? So we have to do the opposite to get rid of 9. So what we do is we subtract 9 to both sides of this equation. So let me first rewrite the equation. And I need to get rid of the 9. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 9. Now, if I subtract 9 on the left-hand side of the equation, I must subtract 9 on the right-hand side of the equation. Right now, having subtracted 9 to a positive 9, is going to make the positive 9 and negative 9 cancel out to 0. And the only thing left on the left-hand side of the equation is going to be x. Right? So I'm going to rewrite then x, and then on the right-hand side, I go ahead and do this operation here, which is 11 minus 9. 11 minus 9 is 2. And since we have the variable isolated on one side of the equal sign, we are done. All right? And the way to check this, there is a way you can check your answer when you solve an equation, and that is by substituting back the value of the variable into the original equation. Right? So let's go ahead and check. So if I check, we want to know is 2. If I put 2 in for x, will I get back 11? That is the left-hand side going to equal to the right-hand side? Well, you can see that 2 plus 9 is 11. And 11 is equal to 11. So yes, it checks. So therefore, we can now say that x plus 2 is a solution. All right, and we do all of these problems in a similar way. Let's move on to number 2. I'm going to go ahead and rewrite the question first. All right, here our goal is to get y by itself, right? So we got to isolate y on the side all by itself. Now, in order to get y by itself, we have to remove that 3 somehow. And what is that 3 doing to y? it's added to y, right? So we have to do the opposite of addition. So the opposite of addition is what? Subtraction. So I'm going to subtract 3 on both sides of this equation, the left-hand side and the right-hand side. Now, when I subtract 3 on the right-hand side, it cancels out the plus 3, because plus 3 minus 3 is 0. So the only thing left on the right-hand side of the equation is y. And now 14 minus 3 is 11. So our final answer is y equal 11, or 11 equal y. All right, moving on to number 3. And we could check this, but for the sake of time, I will not check all of these questions. Moving on to number 3. Here we have, I'm going to rewrite the question again. X minus 11 equal negative 15. Okay, here we got to get x by itself. So now we have to get rid of that negative 11. If we can do that, then x will be by itself. So how to get rid of that negative 11? Do the opposite, which is add 11. And whatever we do to one side, we've got to do to the other side of the equation, other side of the equal sign. All right, now negative 11 plus 11 cancel each other out. And the only thing left on the left-hand side is x, right? And on the right-hand side, we got negative 15 plus 11, and we know this is negative 4. So our final answer is negative 4. X equal negative 4. All right, let's do some more. This is really takes so much practice to get familiarity with, how to solve an equation. It's really not that easy. You really have to practice a lot. All right, so let's do this number 4. We're going to do it in a similar way this time. We want to get x by itself. Rewrite the question. Now, I want to get x by itself. X is on the right-hand side of the equation. In order to get x by itself, I have to get rid of this negative 18. So how can I get rid of negative 18? We have to do the opposite, which is to add 18. And we can't just add 18 to the right-hand side of the equation. We've got to add 18 also to the left-hand side of the equation. Right now, on the right-hand side, we get negative 18 plus 18 cancels out to 0. So we'll have just x plus 0 on the right-hand side, but x plus 0 is just x. So it's not necessary to bring down that 0. All right, just write x, okay? Then on the left-hand side, negative 14 plus 18 is going to give us a positive 4. All right, now it doesn't matter if you write it 4 equal x or x equal 4. They mean the same things. So our final answer here is 4 equal x. All right, let's look now at number 5. This time we've got r plus 8 equal 8. This time our variable is r. And these variables, they can be any letter, usually a lowercase letter. So if you see Z, T, K, N, it doesn't matter. We're trying to solve for that letter. So don't get thrown off by different letters. All right, so here, the same thing. I want to get R by itself. How to get R by itself? What is the thing we have to get rid of to get R by itself? That plus 8. Now, how to remove that plus 8? do the opposite of what it's doing. It's adding to r, so I've got to subtract. And whatever I do on the left-hand side of the equation, I must do on the right-hand side of the equation. Okay, plus 8, negative 8 cancels out to 0. And on the left-hand side, we have r equal to, now on the right-hand side, 8 minus 8 is 0. All right, so 0 can be a solution to an equation. All right, so the final answer is that r equals 0. Okay, moving on to number 6. This time we have to solve for t. So I'm going to rewrite the equation. 4 plus t equal negative 12. Now, my goal is to get t by itself. How can I do it? I have to get rid of everything next to t on that same side of the equal sign. So I got to get rid of that 4. What is 4 doing to t? It's added to t. So I've got to do the opposite. So if there's no sign in front of a number, it's understood to be a plus. If there's no sign here, it should be a plus. All right, so we want to do the opposite, which is minus. So if I minus 4 on the left-hand side of the equation, I must minus 4 on the right-hand side of the equation. All right, now 4 minus 4 cancel out to 0. And the only thing we're left with on the left-hand side is t. So we rewrite t, and on the right-hand side, we've got negative 16. Right, moving on to the next. Okay, for these question here, number 7, let's go ahead and rewrite this. 4x equal negative 28. Now, this time, our goal is still to get the variable by itself. But now, the thing that is preventing the variable from being by itself is this 4. And what is 4 doing to x? Well, we can see that 4, any number right next to a letter, is multiplying that letter. So even though there's no operation there, it is an operation, and that is multiplication. So to undo that multiplication, we have to do the opposite. And the opposite of multiplication is divide. Now, some people might say, I'm going to try to subtract 4 on both sides. No, you can't do this. You cannot subtract 4. Why? Because subtracting 4 will not undo this 4 from x. You see, because they're not like terms. So it won't make this 4x or this 4 next to x go away. All right? Another common mistake that is made is that people may try to, we may try to divide both sides by negative 4. Right? But this is not, no. You don't have to divide by the negative 4. All right? This is a common mistake. The opposite of multiplication is division. So you just need to divide and keep the same sign as the number here that's next to x or next to the variable. So it's not you're dividing by the negative 4, but you're dividing by 4. The opposite of multiplication is division. All right, so now 4x divided by 4 makes a 1 come about. Now 1 times x is the same thing as just x. All right, so that 1 there has no significance. All right, and now on the right-hand side of the equation, a negative divided by positive is negative, and 28 divided by 4 is 7. All right, and now, so we can just say x equal negative 7. Right, it's our final answer. All right, moving on to number 8. Here again, we have to isolate the variable. This time, we have to remove 9. If we can get rid of that 9 or make that 9 go away, we'll have the variable n all by itself. Now, how to make that how to make that number 9 go away? Well, what is 9 doing to n? It's multiplying it. So the opposite of multiplication is division. So all we're going to do is divide both sides by 9. 9 divided by 9 is 1. 1 times n is just n. Right? On the left-hand side, we get 7. Right, moving on to number 9. Here again, we got to get rid of that, get that variable all by itself. And it looks like we got to remove the negative 8. Negative 8, what is it doing to y? It's multiplying y. So we just do the opposite. All right, I made a big mistake here already. Notice that I have to get rid of negative 8, not by dividing by 8. We needed to divide by negative 8. So negative 8 should be divided on both sides. Why? Because negative 8 was a thing multiplying y. Now negative 8 divided by negative 8 is 1. 1 times y is y. And here we're going to get 9. Few more. Okay, same thing for number 10. We want to isolate the variable. And, we don't divide by 3 on both sides. Nope, falling into a trap there. The opposite of multiplication is division. So all we need to do is divide both sides by the number next to x. So in this case, we got x equal to negative 12. And in the same way that we checked some of the questions earlier, we can also check this. Let's check it now. All we got to do is see, is it true that when I substitute negative 12 in for x in the original problem statement, is the left-hand side going to equal to the right-hand side? Well, when you substitute negative 12 in there for x, we're going to have 36 equal to 36. So this works. So this lets us know that, x is really negative 12. All right, let's do a few more. Here, it looks like we do have x by itself, but not quite. We still have to get rid of this negative. Now, whenever you see a negative next to a variable, you got to understand there's a negative, there's a 1, an invisible 1 right in front of that variable, right? And our goal is to make that negative 1 go away. Because as it is now, x is not by itself. We have to remove this negative. So what is that negative doing to x? It's multiplying x. So we need to do the opposite, which is to divide both sides by negative 1. Right now, negative 1 divided by negative 1 cancels out to 1. And 1 times x is just x on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, 2 divided by -1 is -2. Right. Number 12, same thing. We don't quite have y by itself yet. We still have to get rid of that negative. How to get rid of that negative? No, you can't do that because that's not going to make that negative go away. These are not like terms, you see. So you can't add 1 on both sides because 1 is not a like term with -1y. What we have to do is realize that -1 is multiplying y. So the opposite of multiplication is to divide both sides by -1. And then -1 divided by -1 is +1. +1 times y is just y. Now on the right-hand side, we get just 6. A couple more. All right, look at these here. Now, here, our goal is to get the variable by itself. Now, what is that 5 on the bottom doing to x? That 5 is dividing x. So we've got to do the opposite, right? So what we're going to have to do, the opposite of division, is to multiply. So we need to multiply both sides by 5. 5 here, 5 here, right? Now, 5 on the top and 5 on the bottom cancel out to make 1. And 1 times x is just x, right? So we have x here, and on the left-hand side, 6 times 5 is 30, right? So our final answer is 30. Right, moving on to number 14. Again, our goal, get the variable by itself. We would have the variable by itself if we could just somehow get rid of that 10 that's on the bottom. 10 on the bottom means that 10 is dividing the variable. So we need to do the opposite of division, which is what? To multiply. So we're going to multiply both sides by 10. Right? Now, 10 on the top, this is really in the numerator, and this 10 in the denominator are going to cancel each other out to make 1. And then 1 times p is just p. Meanwhile, on the left-hand side, -9 times 10 is -90. Right? So our final answer is -90. Last one. This time, we've got 13 on the bottom. That means that 13 is divided into k, right? So we need to do the opposite to get rid of that 13 on the bottom. So to get rid of that 13, what we're going to do is multiply both sides by 13. So I'm going to multiply 13 here on the left side, and I'm going to multiply 13 here. And I don't mean to make it so small. It's just I didn't give myself enough space here between the equal sign. So anyway, this 13 on the bottom cancels 13 on the top, leaving us just k, or k times 1, which is k. And now 13 times a -16 is going to give us a -208. All right, I hope this video was helpful to you. Math is order.